We are in the finals of the Chessable Masters and we're going to have a look at the crucial game played between world's number one Magnus Carlsen as he's playing with the white pieces against Alireza Firouzja. Fireworks guaranteed and a lot of instructive things I would like to share with you. In this game, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate all the support, and then I will show you how this game started. As Magnus opens with 1d4, knight f6, and we know Magnus, he wants to avoid theoretical battle, so he goes for an interesting line with the Trompovsky variation. Bishop g5, black goes for the move d5, and now white of course has the possibility to take on f6 or not. Well, Magnus goes for the setup with the move e3, black plays c5, and now knight d2. So very solid way of developing. After knight c6, white supports the pawn on d4, c takes d4, e takes d4, and here Firouzja goes for an interesting idea as he played here the move h6. So he's really asking Magnus, please take my knight on f6. But if you do so, let's say bishop takes f6, black is going to recapture with its g-pawn, and okay, the pawns are doubled, but very soon black is going to open up the center with the move e5, and that's probably offering black some nice practical chances with the support of the two bishops, of course. So Magnus is not interested in taking on f6. He drops back with the bishop to h4. Now bishop f5 played, knight g f3, and Firouzja played the move e6. After bishop e2, now the bishop goes to d6, and looking at this position, it seems as if black is in good shape. He has managed to get its bishop outside the pawn chain. The other bishop on d6 is also nicely placed. No problems here, but it's just a game. Everything to play for here still. Castling kingside played, and interestingly, this exact position was reached before in the game by Magnus himself when he played with the white pieces against Sam Shankland. In that game, the American Grandmaster castled kingside here, which is a very logical move, of course. But here, Alireza has different ideas in mind. And he starts here with the move queen c7. So not revealing its cards yet, what he's going to do with the king. After the move bishop g3, now the dark squared bishops are going to be exchanged. Black decided to take on g3, white takes back with the h-pawn, and of course still a lot of different possibilities, including just a simple move, castling kingside, even castling on the other side of the board makes sense as well. But look what Firouzja wants to do now. He played the move h5. What's the idea behind it? Well, on a good day, he wants to get in the move h4 and open up the h-file for the rook and even the diagonal for the queen. So there are some attacking chances for black, but it's not entirely clear yet if this is going to work out well for him. White just continues with making useful moves. Rook e1, and now black goes for the move g6. Remarkable idea to support the bishop. Not sure it was really needed at all. White goes for the move knight f1, so the knight is probably on its way to e3 at the right moment. Knight g4 played, preventing white from getting that knight to e3, because if you do that, then black is gonna take, the f-pawn will be gone, and the pawn on g3 will be hanging. So instead, queen d2 was played, and still black needs to answer the question, what is he going to do with the king? Is it going to stay in the center? There's also the possibility just to go king f8 to place your king on g7. But then, of course, it will be harder for black to launch a powerful attack. So now Firouzja decides to castle queenside anyway. We have a position with opposite castled kings, so both sides are looking for ways to launch their pawns with the aim of opening the files towards the enemy's king. So Magnus goes for the move b4. Black goes king b8. And here white play the move a4. So the pawns are pretty fast, but also black continues here with the move f6. Very interesting pawn play by Firouzja, as the pawns on e6 and g6 are well covered. Even the 7th rank has been cleared, so if the h-file will get opened one day, the queen can quickly shift to that part of the board. But so far, it's not that simple. But on the other hand, if white would continue with a move like a5, then black is ready to play the move g5 followed by h4, and very soon that h-file is going to be opened, and that's not nice for the white king. So instead, Magnus senses the danger And instead of playing the move a5, he wants to stop black's expansion with the move knight h4. Very nice idea. Black continued here with the move g5 anyway, attacking the knight on h4, but it does allow knight takes f5. Knight captures the bishop. Black takes back with the pawn. These pawns, they are looking very impressive, but how strong is the attack? Well, first things first, white move the bishop away from the e-file, so the rook is controlling the only open file of the board, and of course the bishop hits the pawn on f5. Now knight e7 is played. Black protects the pawn there, but here it's the move f3, attacking the knight on g4. The knight has to go back, went to h6, but now it's not really clear whether black is really able here to launch an attack. First, white is going to seize control over that open file by placing the rook on e6, attacking the pawn on f6, rook h to f8, and now the other rook comes to the e-file. So there are absolutely zero attacking chances for black. Now white is threatening to take the knight. The knight goes to c8 and it's on its way to d6. But here white continues with the move a5, improving the situation on the queen side. Maybe that pawn should be stopped, but it's also not looking great. It always invites white to create more open files with a move like b5 at a suitable moment. So first knight d6 played, but now white plays the move a6. So challenging the pawn, black is not interested, is not going to cooperate, keeps the b file closed with the move b6, and now white is going after these weaknesses on d5 and f5. The knight goes to e3. That's a good move, of course, threatening to take the pawn. Even the pawn on f5 can be taken at some point if the knight from d6 goes somewhere. Queen d7 is played here now, but now it's knight takes d5. White is capturing very important pawn. The rook is defended by its colleague again, but Firouzja's idea was here to play the move knight e4, to close the e-file, interfere with the knight there, attacking the queen. And of course, if white would capture that knight, it's queen takes e6, and this is far from clear. Before taking that knight on e4, you better do something clever with your rook by taking the pawn on b6 with check. A takes b6, and now you capture the knight on e4. White is having a fantastic compensation, if you can call it compensation, because he has already two pawns for the exchange. The knight is well supported. Black played here the move king a7 to protect the pawn. Now white just played the move b5. And okay, at some point you probably got to take on e4. Then you take back with the bishop. Bishop is doing a fantastic job of supporting the knight. The black rooks are absolutely inactive. They are not able to create any problems for white. And if white were to play here, he would continue with ideas like knight b4, intending to come in with the knight to c6 with a huge knight fork, and the bishop and knight working fantastically together. So black captured the pawn on b5, but white continues with fantastic move c4. Very nice, energetic move, sacrificing another pawn with the aim of opening more files towards the black king. You're attacking the queen. If you take the pawn on c4, it's rook c1, and it's crushing. The rook hits the queen. If the queen goes away, the rook comes to c7 with a devastating attack. So taking the pawn is not a good idea. And the same can be said, of course, for queen takes pawn on a6. Then the queen will come to b2, preparing the rook to come over to the a file, winning material. Black's position is falling apart. So in the game, black ignored these pawns. Typical defensive strategy, offers the exchange of queens with the move queen a5. But then it's knight b4 anyway. You're protecting the pawn, but most importantly, you're threatening knight c6 with a huge knight fork. You're about to win the queen. Rook c8 played. There's not much else black can do. Knight c6 played anyway. The bishop supports the knight. Knight takes a5 is a threat. Black gives back the material advantage. Rook takes c6, queen takes a5, b takes a5, bishop takes c6, and this endgame is just completely lost because these two pawns are so strong, unstoppable. That knight is really far away from where the action is taking place. Black tried here. Knight to f5, attacking the pawn on d4. The pawn comes forward, d5. King takes a6, eliminating the pawn, but the pawn comes to c5. Connected passed pawns with the support of a beautiful bishop on c6. It's really difficult to meet all these threats, as white has very simple plan of just coming forward and even exchange the pair of rooks. So black tried here to move rook d8. So if you try a move like d6, maybe there are some defensive chances here for black with the idea of giving back the knight for these two pawns. But anyway, white is playing very precisely. This is Magnus at his best. He goes for the move rook e6, hits the pawn on f6. And now, after the move knight d4, look, black is threatening here to take both the rook and the bishop. But the next move, this is so elegant. This is so beautiful. Absolutely fantastic move. You're not even going to take on f6, which is not such a great idea here. Much stronger is bishop to a4 with a discovered check and even giving black the chance here to take the rook. Knight takes e6 was not played in the game because after d takes e6, now the pawn is coming to e7 next. And look at this bishop. It covers the promotion square and it also prevents the black rook from ever giving a check on d1. There's no way to stop that passed e pawn. If you try rook d2, then it's just e7 and now you get behind that passed pawn. Well, there's e8 queen. As I said, the bishop supports the promotion square. Rook takes e8, bishop takes e8, and with a technical winning endgame for white, being a piece up. So you cannot take the rook on e6. King a7 was played instead, but now everything is coming forward. Rook e7 check, the king goes back to b8, and now it's the move d6. The pawns are really strong, getting also very fantastic support from the rook and the bishop. Rook c8, attacking the pawn on c5, but rook e4. Simple and strong, attacking the knight on d4, and the knight cannot really go back to c6. In that case, you can just exchange the bishop for the knight. You give a check on e8, d7, d8 is coming next. Even after rook c8, it's d7, attacking the rook, protecting the rook on e8. So the d pawn will promote next. Anyway, knight c6 was not played. Knight f5 played in the game. Here you got to be careful. The final mistake here for white could be to play a move like d7. It's still winning probably, but after rook d8 followed by king c7, you have given black the opportunity to install a blockade on the dark square. So that's definitely you need to avoid. Therefore, instead white played here just calm move, king f2. Why not? Just you have all the time in the world. Black captured here the pawn on c5, but that's just not gonna work. After rook e8 check, here again, if you play rook c8, it's d7, attacking the rook. If you take on e8, d8, d7 takes pawn on takes back on e8, then you promote to a new queen. That's just game over. So also rook c8 doesn't work. King b7 was played in the game, but now after d7, there's just nothing you can do against the promotion of the pawn. Rook d5, d8 queen, rook takes, Firouzja resigned. And with this game, Magnus was really doing a fantastic job. He forced Firouzja to resign here. And of course, that means that he wins the Chessable Masters in a very convincing manner. Very nice paycheck of $30,000. Not bad for Magnus, although if he has won much bigger prizes in his career, of course, still very nice and very instructive game. So I got entertained by watching this game. I hope you got entertained by watching this video. Thanks for doing that. And very soon, much more interesting games from the very best players in the world. Stay tuned.